Welcome back to Byte-Sized Tech, where we break down these complex tech topics into bite-sized pieces you can actually digest.
Exactly.
Today, we're diving into two stories that might seem totally different at first glance, but trust me, they're connected by this common thread: trust in our digital world.
I like it.
So get this.
Okay.
We have the Cybertrust Mark program and the TikTok ban.
Interesting how those seemingly separate issues both highlight the growing importance of cybersecurity and data privacy in our increasingly connected lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with this whole Cybertrust Mark thing.
Okay.
You know how we've got those Energy Star labels on appliances to show they're energy efficient?
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of like that.
Oh.
But for cybersecurity.
Interesting.
On smart home devices.
So think of it this way. You're at the store, about to buy a new smart speaker or a Wi-Fi enabled security camera. You see a ton of options.
Right.
But how can you tell which ones are actually secure?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's where the Cybertrust Mark comes in.
Okay.
It's designed to give you that extra layer of confidence.
Okay, so it's like a seal of approval.
Yeah.
But who is actually giving this seal and what does it really mean?
Good question.
Is it just a marketing gimmick or is there some real substance behind it?
It's definitely more than just a sticker.
Oh.
The program is run by the FCC and is based on guidelines from NIST. Which is a leading organization for cybersecurity standards.
Right.
So, there's some serious thought behind the criteria.
Okay.
And this isn't just about theoretical security either. It's about practical steps to make devices harder to hack.
Like what?
Like requiring unique passwords and automatic security updates.
So it's about pushing manufacturers to build security into these devices from the ground up.
Yes.
Which is important because we're only getting more and more connected.
Right.
I mean, by 2025, estimates say over 14.4 billion devices will be connected to the internet.
Oh, wow.
That's almost 2 devices for every person on the planet.
That's a staggering number.
It is.
And while it's amazing to think about the possibilities of a hyper-connected world, it also makes you realize just how much we're relying on these devices. Our personal information, our homes, even our physical safety can be tied to these gadgets. So knowing which ones are taking security seriously is a big deal.
Absolutely. I was reading about the Cybertrust Mark. And one thing that caught my eye was that some devices are actually excluded from the program.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like what?
Like medical devices,
Interesting.
vehicles, anything made by companies with potential national security risks.
Oh, wow.
It makes you wonder why those wouldn't be top priorities for cybersecurity, too.
Right. You've hit on a really interesting point. The exclusion of those specific device categories suggests that they either fall under different, more stringent regulations or that the potential security risks associated with them are so complex they need a different approach altogether.
Oh.
It really highlights how cybersecurity isn't one size fits all.
Right, because you would think that medical devices and vehicles would be,
you would think,
especially important. All right, so we've got this new program trying to make our gadgets safer.
Right.
But on the other side of the digital trust coin, we have the U.S. government's decision to ban TikTok.
Right.
You'd think, with all this focus on making devices secure, they'd want people to keep using apps. What's the story there?
The TikTok situation brings up a whole different dimension of digital trust. The potential for data misuse by foreign governments.
Oh, wow.
In this case, the U.S. government is concerned about user data being accessed by the Chinese government, which owns TikTok's parent company.
Right.
So it's less about the security of the app itself and more about who might have access to the data it collects.
Right. So this is where things get a bit more geopolitical. And it's definitely a controversial move.
It is.
I mean, TikTok is super popular.
Yeah, it's huge.
Especially with younger folks.
Especially.
So banning it outright is a pretty big deal.
It is.
You've got some people saying it's a necessary step to protect national security, while others are calling it censorship and an attack on free speech.
Yeah, you have very strong opinions on both sides.
It's a tricky situation.
It absolutely is. It forces us to think about how we balance security concerns with individual rights and freedoms.
In a world where data is constantly flowing across borders, where do we draw the line?
That's the question.
It's a question we'll likely be grappling with for a long time.
For sure.
Yeah.
And to make things even more interesting, this isn't just a U.S. issue.
Right.
India already banned TikTok a while back. And now users there are flocking to other platforms, some of which are also based in China.
Yeah, of course.
It's like playing a game of whack-a-mole.
Exactly.
You try to eliminate one perceived threat, and another one pops up.
Right.
You know?
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And that highlights one of the biggest challenges of regulating technology.
What's that?
It's constantly evolving and operating on a global scale.
Right.
A ban in one country might just shift user behavior to a different platform with similar concerns.
Wow.
So it's clear that we need to be thinking more broadly about solutions.
Okay, so we've got the cyber trust mark.
Which is all about building trust by making devices more secure from the inside out.
Okay.
And then we have the TikTok ban, which is a more reactive approach to a specific perceived threat.
Right.
They might seem like separate issues, but they're both fundamentally about who we trust with our data and our digital lives.
It is all about trust.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is where things get really interesting for you.
Cool.
Both of these stories raise some pretty fundamental questions about the future of tech.
Like what?
What does it even mean
to
have a secure device or platform in a world where data breaches and privacy concerns seem to be in the headlines every other day?
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this, especially with all the technical jargon flying around.
Right.
But ultimately, it comes down to some pretty basic questions. Do you trust the companies making your devices to prioritize your security and privacy? Do you trust the governments regulating these technologies to strike the right balance between security and freedom?
And maybe even more importantly, do you trust yourself to make informed decisions about the tech you use and the data you share?
It's not about becoming a cybersecurity expert overnight.
Right.
But it's about being aware of the potential risks.
Exactly.
Asking the right questions before you click, I agree on those terms of service agreements that nobody actually reads.
Exactly. And this is where initiatives like the cyber trust mark can be really helpful.
Okay.
It's an attempt to simplify things. To give you a quick visual cue that a device meets certain security standards. But is it enough?
That's a good question.
Is it just a Band-Aid on a much larger problem?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the idea behind the cyber trust mark. Making it easier for consumers to make informed choices. But what happens when a device gets that certification and then a vulnerability is discovered later?
Or what about all the devices that aren't covered by the program? Where does that leave us? It feels like we need a more comprehensive approach to cybersecurity. Something that addresses the underlying issues and not just the symptoms.
And that brings us back to the TikTok ban.
It
might seem like a drastic measure, and maybe it is.
Maybe.
But it raises an important question.
Okay.
When does a security risk become so significant that it outweighs other considerations, like individual freedom or corporate interests?
It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. But the TikTok situation shows us that we can't just ignore these issues. We need to have a serious conversation about how we balance security, privacy, and freedom in a digital age. And that conversation needs to involve everyone, not just tech experts and government officials.
You're absolutely right. It's about time we stopped treating cybersecurity like some niche topic for techies and started recognizing that it affects all of us.
Absolutely.
Whether we realize it or not.
It does.
It's about our data, our privacy, our safety, even our democracy.
And that's why we wanted to bring you this deep dive to get you thinking about these issues, to spark some conversations, to encourage you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions.
Because at the end of the day, the future of technology isn't something that's just happening to us. It's something we're all shaping every day with the choices we make.
Whether it's choosing a device with a cyber trust mark or deciding whether or not to use a particular social media platform, each decision has an impact.
So how do we move forward? How do we build a digital world that's both innovative and trustworthy?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There's no magic bullet,
right.
No single solution that will fix everything.
But I think it starts with awareness,
right?
With understanding the risks, asking tough questions,
yeah,
demanding better from the companies and governments
right.
that control so much of our digital lives.
And maybe, just maybe,
yeah.
remembering that technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
It's up to us to decide which path we want to take.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the nuts and bolts of the Cyber Trust Mark program
right.
to the complex geopolitical implications of the TikTok ban, it's clear that digital trust is a multifaceted issue with no easy answers.
Absolutely.
But hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought. And maybe even inspired you to dig a little deeper on your own. So we always say, knowledge is power.
Right.
And in the digital world, that's truer than ever.
Absolutely.
So what can you do with all this information?
Yeah.
What actions can you take?
Yeah, good question.
To build more trust in your own digital life?
It can feel overwhelming.
Right.
But even small steps can make a difference.
Like what?
Start by being more mindful of the devices you use and the data you share.
Right.
Think about what information you're comfortable sharing and with whom.
Yeah. And don't just blindly click accept
on
every privacy policy or software update that pops up.
Yeah.
Take a minute to actually read through them.
Yeah.
I know it's tempting to just skip ahead.
Oh, yeah.
But it's worth it to understand what you're agreeing to.
Absolutely.
Right.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't understand something, reach out to the company or do some research online.
Right.
There are tons of resources available.
To help you make informed decisions about your digital security and privacy.
Remember, this isn't just about protecting yourself.
Right.
It's about shaping the future of technology.
Exactly.
The more we demand better security and privacy practices from companies and government, the more they'll have to listen.
It's like voting with your dollars in your data.
Right.
Support companies that align with your values and hold those that don't accountable.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of digital trust.
It's been fun.
It's a complex and evolving landscape.
It is.
But by staying informed and engaged, we can all play a role in building a safer, more secure, and more trustworthy digital future.
Remember, the future of technology is in our hands.
Right.
Let's make it one we can all trust.
Thanks for tuning in to Byte-Sized Tech.
See ya.
If you enjoyed the episode, like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun tech discussions.